Welcome to MumAbroad's YouTube channel, where I'm joined today by Claudia García Díaz, a mother, a doula, and a women's rights activist. An adventurer and idealist at heart, Claudia worked in the field of emergency humanitarian interventions for several years before pursuing a degree in nursing in her mid-30s. After deciding she wanted to work with women in particular, Claudia then trained as a doula in the United States. She relocated to Spain in 2017, and Claudia now offers her doula services to women in the Barcelona metropolitan area. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
Good, thank you. Claudia, can you explain exactly what a doula does?
So a doula provides continuous support during pregnancy, labor, and the postpartum period. And this support is emotional, physical, and informational as well.
So a doula's role is non-medical, but presumably your nursing knowledge has helped you a lot with this role.
So yes, doulas do not perform any clinical tasks, and our training is non-medical. But since my background is in nursing, you can't really stop or knowing what you know. So what I do is I use that knowledge and help couples sometimes with just the medical jargon, or I know where to find kind of information that we can contrast to different questions they have. So I use my nursing knowledge from that angle, but I don't necessarily, as when I'm hired as a doula, I don't do any clinical tasks with the families I work with.
You've always worked in a profession that involved caring for people. Can you pinpoint the moment when you decided you wanted to specifically work with women?
Absolutely. And it was back in 2012, and I was in an assignment in Ethiopia because at the time I was working with an international medical NGO. And that's where I met a midwife, a Dutch midwife. And what I saw her do, and it's not necessarily what she did, but it's in how she did it, that I was blown away. I had never experienced or seen someone treat women in particular, because she was a midwife, with such respect, respect for their autonomy, empathy, just an all around. It was such a beautiful way of approaching just someone else, and I started following her, and we became very close friends. And I started to go with her to births, if the women allowed, and that's where what I saw in just the raw strength of women, especially because of our ability to gestate and give birth, and what we go through. I was hooked. I need to do this somehow, or be involved in this process. It was magical. So that's when I knew.
And do you think that your humanitarian work has helped you in your training to become a doula? You mentioned about the need for empathy, for example.
Absolutely, because that's where I think the core is that it's not in necessarily what we do, we as doulas, but in how we do it. So it's that that framework of not judging, of respecting every family's process, every woman's process, every family's process, and knowing that context will change so many variables. So you can be empathetic, but you will never be in that position. So allowing for that space for being, maybe this is something I don't understand, and that's also okay. And I can support from that position. So I think that working for many years in the humanitarian field does give you a little bit of that perspective, because otherwise you it would be difficult, no, to spend so much time. Anyway, so yes, I do think it helped a lot.
Claudia, you have 2 children of your own who were born in 2017 and 2020. Do you think that your experience of pregnancy and childbirth has had an impact on the way that you work?
That was probably the second piece of the puzzle that really solidified the fact that now I'm all open in and dedicated to being a doula and working as a doula. Because when I moved to Barcelona, I was pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant with my first child. And I found a group of midwives that provide this kind of support, kind of holistic support, very respectful. And feeling it firsthand, like feeling what it is to be supported through such a period, like being pregnant and labor and postpartum period, living it just made me realize, like, I want all women to have this somehow, right? And so for my second child, I also opted to get this kind of care, and it just confirmed. Once the second one, who is now 2 years old, was around 1, I was like, I'm definitely going, instead of the nursing more hospital shift path, I'm gonna choose more of this the doula path, which involves creating links with people and, you know, being there continuously. And it's a different approach to how you support families.
I was wondering, Claudia, how popular are home births in Spain?
So in Spain, they're actually not very popular. It's about the last information that I looked at births from 2015 to 2019. It was less than 1%. That's compared to maybe a country like the Netherlands, which is up to 16%. But that also has to do with how much the public system supports home births, which in Spain they don't. So it would be a private. You would have to pay for that support privately.
And what would your advice be to anyone who's thinking about a home birth in Spain?
Oh, that's a great question, because I wouldn't give advice. Doulas give information, not advice. So I would provide the information and let the family make their own decision based on their needs. But it's a very valid choice to make. And for some families, it's the right way to go. So, I mean, I'm just happy to provide the information, and then they can make their choice.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the different services and packages that you offer, Claudia?
So I try to adapt what I offer and what I can offer to what families need. So I think some of the things that make me unique. There are other doulas also that, for example, speak English, but there are not that many of us. So sometimes a specific need might be going to appointments and help and acting as translator. So that could be something that's worked into a package of, let's say, 5 sessions, 5 appointments during pregnancy, then labor support if that's something they're looking for, and even that can be adapted, because labor support can look from supporting dilation at home and then going to the hospital and being there. Hospital protocols here change depending on if you can have 1 or 2 support people. So that's a factor to take in. If it's a home birth, then staying at home for the birth, that would require the presence of a midwife, not just me, a midwife or an obstetrician. So that's also something that can be worked into a whole package. And then postpartum support, which is mostly has to do with breastfeeding or just feeding. If breastfeeding is not what the family wants to do, there's many ways of supporting with formula feeding, and just overall support with what it means to have a new baby in the house, and what diapers and how many and are they eating, and all these things that especially for a first time parents can be daunting. So it's almost like build your own package. In the website, I show different options that could work, but we can make it fit whatever need the family sees that it's most pressing.
And would it be possible for a mother to work with you purely postpartum? So, for example, they've had a hospital birth with a midwife and an obstetrician, and then they find themselves at home struggling with breastfeeding, or they're just feeling overwhelmed with a new baby. Would you then be able to work with them?
Absolutely. So there's no reason why. I mean, I can go into and start working with a family once they've had the baby and the baby is at home, and there's a lot of space to support in that time, because sometimes I feel there's a lot of preparation surrounding labor and birth, and really postpartum is a whole new chapter. So yeah, postpartum support is definitely something that is available.
Yeah, I would say after having 3 children myself, definitely that it's the moment when you go home with a newborn baby and you suddenly realize that you've been talking so much about the birth and the run up to the birth that actually you don't know what to do when you get home.
It's sorry, yeah, it's very interesting because there is a lot of birth preparation, and but really that's just a moment, a very important moment, a sacred moment. But what comes after is real. It's for a long time, and it can have a big impact because it's hard to know what to expect that first night, especially when the baby is at home and there's this whole new person in your house.
I think I was genuinely surprised at how long it took to get back to kind of normal, if you ever do get back to normal after having a baby. I just had assumed in my head that once you got home, emotionally, physically, you would just feel normal again. And that doesn't happen. And I think that it's really important to prepare women for that. I don't think it's talked about enough.
I agree. I also there's this idea that the 6 weeks, no, in Spain you call it la cuarentena, and they have different names in different countries, and it's and that's just the amount of time, it approximately the average time that it takes your body to maybe completely stop bleeding and the uterus to come back to its place, just very like clear physical changes. But hormonally, your hormones are still going through many changes. And I think actual postpartum can be 6 months, 9 months, almost up to a year, to, if you want to call it, to feel normal again, even though we know that there's always a part that, I mean, changes, you're changed forever with becoming a mom. So
Also, I think the other really important thing for me was when I realized that you can't compare yourself to other women. So if you have friends who are, going through the same thing as you, have babies at roughly the same time as you, just because they're feeling a certain way after a month or 2 months doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to feel the same. And it's an important thing to remember that you can't compare yourself to other mothers, in the same way that you can't really compare your baby to other babies. I mean, we're all very, very individual, aren't we, in these circumstances?
I think that comes to respecting each other's process, and like your process as a mother is unique to you and your baby, and it's comparing, it's there's that balance between, it's beautiful to have people to talk to that are going through similar things than you are, like that's very important, and that's why finding maybe lactation groups or baby and mother groups to go to is very nice. But it's always important to keep that in mind, what you said, that you and your baby are your own little unique world and process, and your times, they need to be respected, right? They're not the same, everyone's different. So that's a very, very good point.
And finally, Claudia, what do you love about your work?
I love creating, like, being able to create connections with the families that I work with. And I think it's an honor to be present for such a transition in life as it is becoming parents, because it gives you a window into something that I find still magical, right? There's a magic in it, right? And the fact that families open up and allow myself or a doula to come in and support them through an extended period of time, or shorter, if that, but just that openness, it to me is I'm always honored when that happens. So that's it. I can't see myself doing anything else, at least for now. It's not.
I'm going to put your website address at the bottom of the screen, Claudia. So if anybody wants to find out more about you, and also wants to find your contact details, they'll find your email address there. And that just remains for me to say thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jane.